Yo everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today, as I did promise you guys, I have got the brand new Nars Soft Matte Complete Foundation to show you guys. And I've got two because I have that age-old problem which I seem to have these days in determining what my shade is. Now, originally in Nars's foundations, I have always been Barcelona. Now, even Barcelona was a shade that I was always a little bit funny with because it's kind of got peach undertones, whereas I've got very obvious yellow undertones to my skin. It's always come to Nars's foundation shades, I've always been a little bit funny with them. I find that a lot of them don't have enough yellow to them. I find that quite a lot of them got very peachy undertones, and that seems to be some sort of substitute for people with yellowy undertones like myself. However, as I've mentioned to you guys, my skin color has completely changed over definitely the past 12 to 18 months after using sunscreen, acid exfoliants, various different types of skincare products, all of which I've shown you guys in favorites videos, empties videos, and that sort of thing. Therefore, trying to figure out what my new shade was going to be very difficult, especially because this launched the week of lockdown 2 in the UK. So we are currently under our second lockdown now because of coronavirus. It's due to end on the 2nd of December, but that also obviously means that all the shops were shut. And even though I did have the chance to go to the shops, why would I risk it, you know? So I ordered my shade online, and I ordered first off the shade Punjab, which is medium 1. Thinking, being a Punjaban, that it would match me, but I was discriminated against because it's too light for me. So I then went and bought the shade Stromboli medium 3. Barcelona is medium 4, bear in mind. And therefore I was like, okay, hopefully this will work. This one is definitely a perfect match for me now. I'm very happy with the shade Stromboli. Punjab is probably going to end up going to one of my cousins. Go, if you're watching this, it's going to you. Anyway, so this retails at £28 and you get a whopping 45ml in this foundation. That is beyond extra, because normally the standard amount for foundations tends to be 30ml. So if you think it's £28, you're getting an additional 15ml. It definitely works out at fairly good value for your money, as Nars is a higher end priced kind of makeup brand. Now altogether there are 34 shades in Nars's range. For some reason they've only added a couple of newer shades in the past. I think the issue is nowadays, following on from Fenty releasing something like 50 shades, was it, or 45, Huda Beauty doing something similar, and because of that I think that a lot of consumers, myself these days, don't find something like 34 shades to be enough. However, Nars has been around for a really long time. This has been a brand that has been around since I was a child, or definitely before I used to actually pay attention to makeup. I've also found that the way that they display foundations on their actual website to be very confusing. I find Nars's website very user friendly. I find it very kind of 2005. We're in 2020, you guys, now. It's not good enough. Pop-ups every second. Trying to figure out my shade. Another pop-up showing up. In the end, I just bought it from Boots' website. Nice, simple, straightforward. And a lot of the time, Boots tends to do 15% off, even with brand new products. So by all means, if you are interested in, after the end of this review, purchasing this foundation, definitely keep an eye out on Boots' website, because they tend to do really good offers. They've got a really good loyalty system as well. Whereas with Nars, you just, you know, you just get the foundation. Now, in terms of their mix of foundations, they're generally quite good at covering off all kind of skin tones, from very fair to very deep in skin tone. So hopefully there is something for everybody. Now, I did want to show you guys these two swatch side by side, which I will show during this video. I did it beforehand, showing you them swatch side by side on my face, but I'm going to show them to you swatch side by side on my hand as well, just so that you guys can see it differently. Bear in mind that my hands are darker than my face, definitely my driving hand more than my non-driving hand. In the UK we drive on the left hand side of the road, but we sit on the right hand side of the car, just to give you guys an idea. So first off, the box is standard classic Nars black soft matte box, nice, sleek and cute. And then the actual packaging itself, I actually really like this. I find it really chubby, like a little chubby toddler's legs. I love them, just want to bite them. They just look really nice and sleek and straightforward, with that classic standard soft matte finish that you get from a lot of their blushes and that sort of thing. But it's very nice and easy to use, and when you open it up from its screw top lid, you can see that it is a squeezable tube. You just got to be a little bit careful when you pour it out, because otherwise you can have a little bit of an accident. But it's nice and simple and straightforward. Okay, so here you can see both of them swatched side by side on my hand, the bottom one being medium 1 Punjab and the top one being medium 3 Stromboli. Now Punjab is the only one within the medium section which is described as with yellow undertones. The rest have all got olive, peach or pink, whereas the one which is Stromboli, which is clearly definitely got more yellow undertones to it, is described as being medium with olive undertones, which I definitely would disagree with because I don't have olive undertones to my skin. If anything, I lean more towards kind of cool and neutral rather than olive itself. But you can definitely see that this one, I would say, has definitely got more of a peachy undertone to it, whereas Stromboli is definitely a lot more yellow. So bear that in mind when you are trying to pick your shade online. It can be very difficult and slightly deceiving as well. And also remember that these are thickly swatched, not blended out, so it won't necessarily show up like this on your skin. So now you can see why it was quite difficult for me to even decide what shade I was, because unfortunately I just don't find their website very user-friendly at all. I couldn't even see any swatches like they normally would do. Even if you go onto their Instagram page, there's nothing, just pictures of close-ups of people's face. No swatches against each other. So I suppose that's the reason why videos like this can be quite helpful, because it can be quite daunting and slightly intimidating as well, trying to figure out what your shade is online. And a lot of the time, I'll give for example, when they show medium swatches, it's normally on somebody's light-skinned hand. How is that going to help me? I need to see it on a medium skin tone hand. And also bear in mind that nowadays I seem to sit within the light medium range when it comes to a lot of foundations. So again, that's the reason why I ended up buying Punjab as well, because I thought, okay, but that's more closer to kind of the fairer medium end. But voila, it did not work for me, and Stromboli is the next best option for myself, and I'm very glad that it did work. If you look at the swatches that I'm going to show on my face, you can see as well how different it is one to the other. Both of them admittedly look light on my skin when matched to my neck. But again, as I said with my hand, it is very different showing a swatch which is thickly done on the face compared to when it's actually blended out. When you blend out Punjab, it's way too light. It gives a white cast over my face, makes me look a little bit unwell. Whereas Stromboli, even though it looks like it's quite light, once it's blended out, it works perfectly fine. And that's the reason, again, why I wanted to show you guys how it should work. You should always try to match your foundation to your neck, because that is the area where the cut-off line is. If you think about it, the rest on the other end is in your hair, and you can kind of disguise those kind of things. Also, another thing to bear in mind is if you happen to be South Asian like myself, or within that shade range, our foreheads tend to be slightly darker than the rest of our face, because I suppose that's the area that the sun hits first. My forehead is marginally darker, and that's why when I have applied it to my face, I haven't applied extra product to my forehead. I've just used the remainder of what was on the brush, and the brush that I've used to apply it today is the Morphe M439 Deluxe Buffer Brush, which I always tend to use for my foundations because it just buffs everything, smooths everything over my face a lot more nicely, and it gives a much nicer, natural and even finish. And then I just bronzed around the edges, and voila, it looks perfectly fine. So let me just read what their claims are off of their website for you guys, as I always tend to do, and then I'll let you know what my thoughts are and whether or not I agree with them. It says, discover all-day satisfaction with a breakthrough in matte foundation. True color oxidization resistant. I agree, it does not oxidize. Full, natural looking coverage, comfortable 16-hour wear, featuring Nars' exclusive anti-oxidation complex. Really? To help prevent color shifting and to help protect skin from pollution and blue light damage. New Hydra Matte Balancing Complex balances excess sebum while keeping skin hydrated with a combination of microalgae and biohyaluronic acid. Superior oil absorbing powders create a smooth, mattified second skin look. Satisfying, mattifying, the new take on matte, available in 34 shades for all skin tones, oxidization resistant, transfer proof and shine proof. First off, I don't know where they've come up with this anti-oxidization complex. You just make that up, because there are loads of foundations on the market and have been that don't oxidize. They don't all oxidize. So I don't know why they're making it out like they've done something groundbreaking when I don't really think that they have. But yes, they are right. It does not oxidize at all. The color stays true to form as when I apply it as to when it dries down, and it looks exactly the same. And then apparently it's got this new Hydra Matte Balancing Complex, which balances excess sebum while keeping the skin hydrated. Okay. All right. So just to let you guys know what my skin type is, if you were not aware, I've got combination skin. I get oily across my T-zone and on my chin. So, well, that is my T-zone. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like a T. Yeah. So it's nose, this cheek area over here, this area and this area over here. So that's where I tend to break out into oil depending on what product I've used. Bear in mind, I've got an excellent skincare routine, and a lot of the time my skincare tends to keep my excess oil in place, and therefore my makeup doesn't really have to do that much these days because, well, Korean skincare, you guys. And it says that it is a medium to full buildable coverage. I disagree. I would say it is full on coverage. It is really, really full coverage. The first time I wore it, I was like, whoa, like I looked plastic fantastic, that kind of like full coverage. You could not see a thing. Even today, I'm only wearing one layer on my face. More than one layer would just be way too much and you would look overly matte and overly fake. The whole purpose of it being soft matte is that it's supposed to give a soft, natural matte sort of finish. Depending on what your skin type is like, I've got pigmentation, I've got scarring, I've got acne scars, I've got pitted skin, and I only needed to apply one layer. So if you're one of those lucky people that's got almost perfect skin, firstly, I don't know why you want to wear full coverage anyway. You should really just be wearing tinted moisturizer. All jokes aside, if you do like to wear full coverage foundation, depending on how much coverage you need, bear in mind, only apply a little bit, otherwise it just won't look right at all. Now, after 16 hours, when I first wore it, I wore it to work. I worked all day, 8 hours, came home, cooked, cleaned, did this, did that, whatever. I got caught in the rain as well. It had separated around this area, around my nose, around my chin, and the sides of my mouth. Now, they claim that it is 16-hour wear. I would dispute that claim. After 16 hours, forget it. It had started to break down. If anything, it had started to break down after about 10 hours. Now, 16 hours, I would have allowed it because I thought, well, that's the maximum time you guys say you can wear it for. But yesterday when I wore it, 10 hours, I hardly left my house. I think the most I left my house was to go from my garden to my shed, and I got rained on as well. Again, testing it out in the rain, and it was fine, by the way. It didn't move around on the face or rub off on anything. Not that I wiped my face on anything, but I found that it worked all right in the rain for a short period of time. However, it'd been 10 hours and I got the same separation around my chin, side of my mouth, side of my nose, and then I'd also noticed that it started to separate around my head as well. I had not worn any primer or anything like that. I generally don't tend to wear primers anymore. I actually personally find that primers tend to do more bad than good for my skin these days, so I've stopped wearing them. But then also I wanted to do a review without actually having any additional products so that I could give you an honest review based on just bare skin, if anything, just my normal skincare. You definitely do need to set it. Now, even though it is a matte foundation, when it dries down to a slight tacky feel. And then if you do not set it, what will happen is, and what happened to me was that even though I was applying my contouring products and my blusher and my highlighter, it was slightly catching on my brush because it was not completely dry. You only really need to apply a really tiny amount of powder and then it's completely soft, and everything applies beautifully on top afterwards. It is very comfortable to wear. It is very easy to blend. The texture of the product is not thick, it's not thin. It's kind of that in-between stage, so you can maneuver it and move it around on your face before it starts to dry. It doesn't start to dry immediately, so you can take your time in moving it around depending on what areas you want to apply a little bit extra coverage to. It doesn't show up texture. Like I said, I've got textured skin. I found that it kind of disguised the texture. It actually looked really nice on the skin. It didn't look awful or offensive. I've told you guys in the past that I am a eczema sufferer, and for the past over a year now I've got eczema on my chin and on the side of my nose. Even though I've been using like eczema cream for it, it did not cling to it, it did not accentuate it, it did not make it obvious. If anything, even if you guys were to zoom up real close, you would not be able to see any eczema on my chin, and that's the good thing about this foundation, that it doesn't cling to any kind of dry patches, which is great. So in all, I would say that it's definitely a pretty decent foundation. I remember they've also said that it's shine proof. I would not agree with that. Like I said, after about 10 hours, separation wasn't just separation, it was separation along with shine on the face. So because the product had started to break up, the natural oils had started to cause it to break up around in those areas. So even though that they claim that it's got this whole Hydromat Balancing Complex, which balances excess sebum, I would say no, it does not. And it may keep the skin hydrated with all these things, but it didn't really make much difference to the way that the foundation performed. I've said it before, my skincare needs to do skincare, my makeup needs to do makeup. Too many companies these days are trying to incorporate too much skincare into their makeup. I want one and the other, I don't want combined. It says that it gives a second skin look. I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that personally. I mean, I actually feel that when I look at my reflection in the mirror, I can see that I've got foundation on my skin. It kind of sits on top of my skin, and I don't like that. If I was to compare it to my most recent matte foundation purchase, which is the Too Faced Born This Way matte, that one performs excellently in comparison to this one. This one is okay, but it's definitely not as good as that one. I like this foundation, but I don't love it. And yes, it does transfer. It doesn't transfer hugely, but when you say something is transfer proof, I'm going to take that verbatim to mean that it don't come off at all. Humidity proof and sweat proof, no, because that goes hand in hand with me becoming shiny. You know, even though I wasn't in a humid area, how come it was still breaking down on my face? Technically, humid proof means it would stand up in humidity. But at the moment, it's November in London. We've got gale force winds outside. It's kind of cold. There ain't no humidity. Why are you still breaking down, if that makes sense? Protects from pollution and blue light as well, they say. Well, that's great. But again, that's something that you wouldn't really notice much unless you've been using it for a significant period of time. Also, I live in a city. I live in one of the most polluted cities in Europe. Whether or not this is going to protect me against pollution, I'm really not to know. I use sunscreen, I use various other products, hopefully they're helping me. But whether or not my foundation does, I really don't know. So altogether, I would probably give this foundation an 8 out of 10. I know you guys had high hopes for it. Now, bear in mind the pros and the cons that I've given. It is always down to personal preference, and makeup is never one size fits all. What may work for me may not work for you. So like I said, I like the foundation. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But it's not going to be my new BFF, and probably won't be something that I repurchase it in the future. But it is nice to see that Nars have finally come out with something new. It's been a while since they've come out with a foundation. No, I've not tried the concealer. I'm not a fan of them pot type concealers. I prefer liquid concealers personally. Before anybody asks me to buy it, I won't. I'm just letting you know now. Yeah, so that's it for my review of the brand new Nars Soft Matte Complete Foundation. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hope you're all great. Hope you're all well. Hope you liked the video. Let me know if you're going to buy it or if you have bought it and what your thoughts are. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.